Hello, in today's episode we'll be discussing the third eye and the activation of the spirit senses. So all of the sense gates, the eyes, the ears, the nose, sense of taste and feeling, and of course the sense of knowing, the mind, the 6 gates, these are foundational for this. And I think very often many on the spiritual path lock into the sense of the third eye specifically, and I believe that we can have a much deeper understanding of this if we apply recognition of the full spectrum of the sense gates, the 6 sense gates, as well as the spirit senses. So if we have eyes, nose, tongue, ears, skin, feeling, and mind at the physical level, we then, as the spirit gates open, we have for the eyes, clairvoyance. We have for the ears, clairaudience. For the sense of feeling, clairsentience. For smell, clairaudience. And for taste, clairgustinance. And for the mind gate, we have claircognizance, the insight mind. So if we look from this perspective, this opens up many doors for us because we don't get so narrow-minded in the experience of the third eye specifically. So very often when we begin practicing, especially if we're doing energy work, the energy will lock in to the blockages. It gets stuck on the blockages. And anywhere where energy is stuck, it starts to build and pressurize. So if we are experiencing, with the third eye for example, a very common sensation that people feel is pressure in the head. And if we are experiencing this, we want to be wary of looking at it as this wonderful thing that we can then, pridefully discuss with our peers and be all proud about. What we want to explore is all of the senses and how they all work in relation with the refinement of consciousness. And of course, the third eye, this particular energy center, is one area of expression, which typically responds via opening to and creates the ability for visions, for the eye gate or the visual gate, the seeing, to occur both through the eyes, clairvoyantly, as well as claircognitively through the internal mind being supplied with visual stimulus that bypasses the eye gate. Both of these can happen. So amplification of the senses, this is very common. And you might find after you're in retreat for a good period of time, you come out of retreat and you see colors that you typically never really noticed before. You start to hear subtleties of reality, subtleties of the nature around you. And very often we find that we start to know things a little bit before they happen. And part of this, in the beginning, a big part of it, is simply that we're aware of the wave of causation closer to its source. Very often that wave of causation, we don't notice it until the effect is taking place. But as we become less perturbed, less confused, and our sensory experience is less clouded by the chattering of the mind and by all of our own stories, we start to become aware within each moment more and more and more. Our slices of time, our slices of awareness increase. So because of this, we actually are awake during the whole process of events that leads up to what we used to consider the event. There's always a whole cascade and series of events unfolding. So this is the first phase of this, is simply allowing all of the sense gates to evolve. You become more aware. And this, of course, applies to the energy centers themselves. Now, is activation of the third eye of the spirit senses a sign of refined consciousness and evolution on that path? It can be, but we want to make sure we don't think that it is a one-for-one thing, because then we will confuse people who have some innate clairvoyant or clairsentient, whatever, abilities as evolved beings. This is no different than someone who can, go, like curry, or like, feel something and go, oh, like that's a knife, oh, I feel itchy, oh, I feel cold. It's simply more refined sensory experience. Even when the sensory experience is coming through the medium of, say, the vital field and plane, or the astral field and plane, or the mental field and plane, it's still simply refined sensory experience. Now, this helps us avoid being pulled into the trap of assuming that spiritual experience is a sign of development. But it certainly can be. And you can look at this almost like a loop of development that can occur through the refinement of the sense gates and the opening of the third eye. So how would this work? Well, let's say you start with the senses awakening. The awakened senses are now able to perceive more. We are aware of more, and therefore, because of that increase in awareness, if that awareness is met, if that perception is met with an equalizing equanimity, this allows for deeper insights. That increase of awareness, that awakening of the senses, plus the needed reflection of equanimity, and of course through stillness, the akasha, allows for an elevation of consciousness through the sovereignty unity paradigm, that paradox of sovereignty and unity that I've discussed often on this channel. And so from that, through the akasha, the consciousness rises in vibration, the potential at least, right? It refines. Once it refines, it's now oscillating at a higher vibration. That higher vibration, then once we, we will equalize with it, that higher vibration then can stimulate the sense gates to awaken further, can stimulate the third eye to open and awaken further. Now remember, like we said, any blockage to the energy, and every blockage to the energy, that is where we get the feeling of pressure, or even many of the visions and the cool spiritual clair experiences are very often blockages. The energy is bumping into stuff, right? And we are perceiving the energy getting stuck. When there's nothing for the energy to stick to, then you simply have the raw unfolding of experience itself, of perception itself as emptiness. But when perception hits a bump, then the energy builds on that. So we want to acknowledge whatever experience and perception we are going through, but not get too stuck on it. It's very, very often just an example, a finger pointing to us, for us, at a blockage that we have. Now, sometimes those blockages take the form of insights, because we need to work through that particular karmic path and allow those insights to help evolve us. So it's not a bad thing. It's something that we need to explore with an open mind. So that's an example of how the cycle of awareness and opening the sense gates, refinement of consciousness, deeper insights, this can be a bit of a feedback loop on itself. Now, like we said, just because you're experiencing signs of awakening sense gates doesn't mean you're going through the process of consciousness refinement and developing deeper insights and cultivating depth of equanimity and sovereignty and unity and realization and evolution. There are many people who the reason they get into spiritual practices is because they're going through all of these sensory experiences which aren't lining up with what most people experience. And often, you feel like you're going a little bit nuts. So people get into the spiritual arts to learn how to have less of these experiences, how to ground them out. So there's a lot involved here beyond the excitement of, having visions, seeing mandalas, and hearing communications, whether you're working out with nature magic or with more refined spiritual consciousness and awareness entities. So the next thing we want to look at here is why the framework is so helpful. For example, in the Initiation to Hermetic's text, so that we can work through this and not get stuck on these blockages and these sticking points. So in Franz Bardon's book, for example, he doesn't get into the Clair gates, and that's just through the astral mechanism and energetic plane until step 7 of 10. This is it means there's many prerequisites. You have to build sovereignty and freedom of mind so you don't get gripped by these experiences and led astray. You have to understand the elements, and you explore the elements vitally, astrally, mentally. You've worked through how the elements are understood in the mental plane, in the mental body. You've through, say, like willpower and discernment and cohesive attachment and consciousness consolidation. You've worked through them in the astral and learned how to find equilibrium, magical equilibrium and balance. You've worked through the soul mirror, vitally, astrally, mentally, through the elements, vitally, astrally, mentally, in relation to the black and white mirror of the soul. You've done a lot of energy work, so you understand how energy can be built and pressurized and dissolved. That's so important for this. And of course, you've developed a deep understanding and experience with the personal Akashic consciousness, as well as an aspect of universal Akashic consciousness, though it's tuned for a safer experience in the text. So this is all prerequisite to really trying to explore the sense gates. Now, what you might notice with the activation of the spirit senses, especially if you're working through a paradigm of evolution, is that simply as a byproduct of the refinement of consciousness, the experience that you go through via the senses evolves on its own. It evolves because you know yourself. You've gotten to know your mind, your emotions, your body so well. You've gotten to know Akasha, light, the elements, the astral plane, the mental plane, the vital energy. You've gotten to know a host of vibrational spectrums and frequencies so well within yourself as they all relate to you, that you notice these things in the world around you and others. Because you've gone through Akasha and the barriers have dissolved, you recognize that you are the other, you are what you're experiencing at a very profound level. The crown has opened via the Akashic work, and so because of this, you're not trying to fabricate experience. So by the time you get to a stage where you might actively be working on exploring the sense gates, refining the sense gates, opening the sense gates, opening the third eye, not only is the safety there, but you've had all of these experiences already. They're deep within your tangible, visceral understanding. And so it's just shining a little light on those experiences, and that gives you more freedom and sovereignty with those experiences. You learn how to use them. So this is really, really important so that we can progress without falling by the wayside and getting waylaid by these experiences and by these sensitivities, because part of that awareness, you're so open that you're aware of so much. And this is why the Akasha is so necessary, and why the balancing the black and white mirror is so necessary. So when you experience an affront, we might say, on the system, the goodwill of the soul is so developed that there isn't a backlash of negative intention from you towards the source, perceived source potentially, of that infringement. So this is where many modern practicers can get stuck, is the seeking of signs. And that's because we often think that we're too good to go through a system, or too good to take our time. So things like visions and spirit sense perceptions and pressures and powers, synchronicity, all this stuff, these things are wonderful when they happen. We just want to be careful of seeking. Is it bad to have these experiences and many others? No, certainly not a bad thing in and of itself. The seeking of it is where an issue arises, because when we are seeking a skill and we take pride in these experiences, we then boast about them. And the boasting of these clair experiences is can be a bit of an issue, because very often it's simply damaging to the recipients of that insight. That's a really, really important thing to contemplate and to meditate on. The instruction of Bardon to adhere to silence, magical silence, there's a lot to be said for that. Now, the last thing here would be, when the spirit senses arise naturally as a byproduct of evolution and refinement of consciousness, it usually is accompanied by some degree of compassion, some degree of open-heartedness, kindness, goodwill. And this is because you know yourself. You know your mind so well, you know your emotions so well, you know your body so well, that when you see the mental expressions and fragmented images and whatnot coming from others, when you feel the emotion coming from others, when you see postural things, whatever it is, you only are aware of it because you know it so well from yourself. You recognize it, what is external, because of your own internal deep relationship with that. And that bakes into it deep compassion and tender-heartedness and understanding, and probably most importantly, non-judgment. That is where a big part of this lies when it comes to doing the good work around you. So that's it for today. If you're interested in training, please check out the courses and retreats found on the website, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for your time. Have fun, practice. Bye.